Parliament met. Forget the leftists. I am their first opposition. I went on the television channel including NDTV supporting nuclear deal. But this is harakiri. How do you say the reactor will not have any impact? And that fellow will only have a 1500 crores liability. Such a foolish country. The population per square kilometer, you cannot compare with US. I cannot believe my parliamentaries were shooting themselves in the foot or somewhere else, I don't know. You know?
Gopal tragedy.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, this, I'm telling you for the first time, the Congress, I'm sorry to say, the BJP or anybody who was there, sold the country, and the left was right. And it is, I'm telling you, it capitalist way also, and commercially also, it is the most unintelligent idea to allow a nuclear supplier to go scot-free. Because what happened? After doing that deal, I tell you, we will have greater opposition to nuclear power plants. And I can assure you that the 10,000 megawatt thing which we wanted to come, which we wanted that to happen in Jaitapur will never happen now. So with this kind of condition, we are talking practical stuff. We are saying this will come. Ye zarur hoga. So my answer to you is, there is nothing called cheap power. There is only either you have electricity or you don't have it. And when you don't have it, the cost of not having it is a doomed country. I can tell you that it will be equivalent to Pakistan. We are no better than them. 100%. We look like a democracy. I can assure you that we are a democratic anarchy. And one of the worst in the world. Planned and finishing our own people and their souls. Corporates will continue to only do business without realizing that they have a commitment to do that business on a long and sustainable basis. So we are discussing here, at least my group, I am very clear that business can be done in a sustainable, efficient, ethical way. It is not needed to do it in a more unethical way, जैसे हो रहा है. और बहुत business है इसमें, ethical way में करोगे तो. That is my answer to you. I don't know if any of the panel wants to reply, but that's my way. You know, I think people like TC and all others have been with us, and I can tell you they are all ethical people. And they will all tell you that there is nothing called ढाई रुपए का power up.
See, if the power goes into the grid, whether it comes from the cheaper source of power or expensive source of power, for the consumer it is the same. The glass of milk will not change the color of the Ganges.
Absolutely. Any other? Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Varun Gulati from Indian Energy Exchange. I would just, I've been going through whatever you've been saying, but I would like to know, when you say 50 gigawatts in 12th plan, you know, we've seen the presentations, and even the decentralized, I don't think, 2 years, 3 years, it's the time then we see in big capacity being added. But in the same time, 10, 11, 12, by 12 we'll be having UMPPs online. And these are power at 1.7 rupees. Even on, I say on the exchange today, we see every day we see more and more power being added. The prices are falling. I've heard some examples of being where they say it's 7 rupees. Today it's not 7 rupees on the exchange. It's lower than that. So, in such a scenario, when the bigger players, the UMPPs, are adding so much power, and it will come up in the next 2-3 years, is there a way to quicken this the decentralization of power, so that there is some room for growth before the entire market is taken up by the bigger players?
I'll give you a very clear answer. I have not got that seminar done. Air conditioners designed at 35 degrees, and I'm sorry I'm digressing from the topic, but it's an interesting thing I want to tell you, that your figures are completely incorrect. I'm sorry to say that, because what you're seeing is from a very limited perspective, because you only trade 2% of India's electricity. Don't feel bad about it. But only 2% of India's electricity in trading you account for as energy exchange. 98% goes without the exchange. So let us come to call a spade a spade. I want you guys to come here and discuss, but पहले ट्रेड तो करो यार, तुम धंधा तो करो. तो आप बोलते हो उसमें प्राइस कम हो रहा है. I think these are all distress sales, and I can tell you openly, Reliance Energy Limited at 179, 1 rupee 19 paisa, they will not be able to sustain. Sasan, forget about it. Even they are telling me, I don't want to name the guy who's telling me. It cannot happen, I'm telling you. You go grassroots and visit. This is fooling yourself, fooling the country. Balance sheet spike हो गई है. अब वो spike होने के बाद क्या होगा? Network कब तक रहेगी? जब asset ही तुम्हारा कुछ नहीं करेगा, तुम क्या करोगे? Let us be careful यार. भाई, there is nothing called focus and cheap. No, we don't want, we are not in a quick mode. The quickest mode is this 2012 50 gigawatt. I tell you, if we achieve, we have nothing to do with the larger power plant. Your own neighbor has got 9 lakh megawatt. What are you discussing? Sitting at 1,60,000 megawatt.
See,
What are we discussing?
in 1947, China had 1643 megawatt and we had 1300 megawatt.
Look at
Where
that.
we are now.
So this is absolutely a non-starter, the question itself that you have put. Go back to your think tank, including Dr. Deo, who's sitting there. Daily he is managing. He's reduced his advertising budgets. He's only doing internal jugglery. At exchange also. Where is the growth? T.N. Thakur made Power Trading Corporation. How much he traded? He's an excellent man. How much he traded? When Professor Iyer speaks, all will keep quiet. Both at the center and state. भाई सच बोलो ना यार, क्या कर रहे हो? अगर आपकी trading 50% of energy is traded in your exchange, that day I will discuss this subject with you. That is my answer to you. I'm not shutting you off. You are a young man यार, but let's open यार, open eyes. मैं इसमें रह के आया हूँ. 16 साल मैंने काम किए हैं. हमने cheap power दिया Standard Alkali को. We competed with our friends Wärtsilä. I feel Wärtsilä and MAN can do well. मान की धज्जियां उड़ गई इंटरनेशनली, अभी वो आए नहीं हमारे सेमिनार में, पैसे नहीं डाल पाए. देखो ये हालत है. एंड वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट थिंग्स. इंडिया में ऑफिसेज वाइंड अप हो रहे हैं, जर्मनी में हालत खराब है. व्हाट आर वी गोइंग टू डू? यू टेल अस. आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ सॉल्यूशन फॉर दिस कंट्री. आई एम हैप्पी. एनी नंबर ऑफ फॉरेन प्लेयर्स कैन कम एंड डू द सॉल्यूशन. सो विल बी हैप्पी. द मोमेंट दीज गाइज सेल MTU, आई एम हैप्पी. Then it is business. And Agrico sells, I am also happy. Limay sells, I will be happy. He will tell me I am getting business in construction industry. Bhattacharya Sahab says, now after DLF, now there are 45 people I am giving consultancy and there is going to be 10,000 megawatt now from this. I will be happy. Reliance comes and says, okay, now we are not going to only think of big plants, but we will do the 10 gigawatt of decentralized. I tell you, I will have a party next day at my cost. Let me see. How many stand?
Reliance is thinking in that term.
No, I'm saying let them do. Thinking is fine, sir. Doing is different. See, इस country में क्या हुआ है? अभी भी Tata has got only 3,500 megawatt. Let us understand. I'm very fond of Tatas. But what? 3,500 megawatt versus NTPC's 30,000 megawatt. Am I right, sir?
Yeah, one company has 1200 megawatt operation, his market capitalization so high.
Absolutely.
And 30,000 has hardly anything.
Fair. So this is the kind of thing that we are, this is a skewed model. If we want to say the private sector has arrived, then let us call a spade. So I am very happy when Adani really does it, because वो कर लेगा. गौतम को तकलीफ होगी, उसको चाइनीज तंग करेंगे, उनके मशीन्स फेल भी होंगे, इसकी गारंटी है, लेकिन वो कुछ ना कुछ तो बना जाएगा, और सेकंड टाइम चाइनीज नहीं लेगा वो.
See, it's a very contradictory. 25% to 30% of power which is fed into Indian grid is by NTPC, but yet market capitalization is nothing in front of private parties.
See, this
So how do you answer
this
this?
stock market, I'm telling you, is not the real GDP. Although I also invest and make some money there, but let me tell you, it is no measure of the GDP, and it is no measure of any economy as such. This is the biggest, I'm telling you, fraud that is conducted internationally, or is fraud ko openly, I will call a fraud. Obama administration, what is happening? I'll send you an Andy Grove article to all of you. How they have been rocked by the manufacturing game that China played. We were talking, Khanna Sahab and we were talking, how Europe is also falling into the same pit. So there are some topics which we cannot directly discuss with you. There are a lot of knowledge bank here. We are intelligent people. I have not come to publishing by playing some carom. I've spent 16 years to 17 years in the engineering industry. I sold power plants, established 500 megawatt. I know where this lies and where the problem is. So we are writing with a lot of conviction. We are also talking to thousands of people, believe me or not. You start interacting with us, you will realize what we are saying. Any other questions? So we break and come back for a nice session again. Long one. Mr. Vikas Guilani? Yes. Mr. PVSN Murthy is the chairman of the session. May I request Murthy Sahab also to come? Pranavji, you are the co-chairman. That doesn't change. Yeah. H.M. Kamath Saab, our good friend, has come all the way up from Pune. Anama Energy. Varun Gulati. And our friend from Vatsila, Partha, come all the way from Kolkata. Now I have to travel to meet him there now. Next. Okay. Come. Dr. Prashant Bhatt, where is he? Ah, right. Thank you, Bhatt Sahab, for giving your time to us. Just tell them that we are starting the session. Before we begin, let's once again request all the people out. Yes, first, may I request Murthy Sahab to give away the appreciations in the first stage, then we will have Pranavji giving it away. The first one for Vikas from CRISIL. Please give a big hand to Mr. Varun Gulati of Indian Energy Exchange. To Shri H.M. Kamath of Anama Energies. To Dr. Prashant Bhatt, please. We welcome you, sir. May I now request Pranavji to give the rest. The first one to Mr. Partha Paul. The next to my good friend Raghu Menon. And another one for Praveen Pai, my former colleague and a good friend. I would also request Pranav Mehta ji to give a memento to Murthy Sahab. Thank you everybody for the patience, and now I hand it over to Mr. P.V.S. Murthy to conduct this session, please, and Mr. Pranav Mehta who co-chair it. Thanks.
Hello. Yeah, good evening, everyone. We have now combined the two panel discussion sessions, which is the fuel options as well as the developing of decentralized energy and distribution power for urban and industrial estates. Well, we had a very interesting session in the morning where we are talking about how the decentralized energy can be developed, especially limited to, of course, we are talking about gas and biofuel only. But there are a lot of decentralized energies like others, what we talked about, solar, mini hydro, etc. Well, if I say summary-wise, decentralized energy also requires a lot of policy initiatives from the government. Unless that policy initiatives also come up, there is a potential, 50 gigawatt potential should be available, but how it's going to work out unless there is a policy initiative from the government, and especially what we are talking about the rural sector, that means generating and at the same time distribution. That means you need certain policy decisions from the government. It's like talking, making Panchayati Raj with less powers. Same way, if you make decentralized energy something but without giving proper policy initiatives, it will not work out. And as I see, most of these projects will come up on time, and if you can have a good project management, this is one of the major things I think as a country we are lacking. Best example is CWG games, which are so much lacking right now in India. So that shows the strengths of project management. In addition to technology, India needs a lot of strengths in the project management, which is a vital thing, which normally one of my favorite subjects, which I will always say, two things, project management and the decision making at the correct time. These two things are very vital for any projects to succeed. With that, my introduction now, what we do is each participant will have 5 minutes to speak so that we complete it in the time. and then we'll summarize it. So first I'll hand over to Mr. Pranav Mehta to just say a few words.
At this stage, I have nothing much to add than what I have already said, and therefore I would like those minutes to go to the rest of the speakers. Thank you.
So I request Dr. Prashant Bhatt to make his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deliberate on points on biofuel. What are the technological barriers? And if we have to make this as a model for decentralized energy source, few of the technological input are required before it can be utilized. And my experience on working on Jatropha as well as another source of biofuel, microalgae, will be briefly summarized. You see, Jatropha, about 5 years ago, I have heard our ex-president of India, Abdul Kalam, putting this as a national mission to cultivate Jatropha as an alternative source of biofuel. 3 years ago, I read that high power committee at a cabinet level, 5 ministers including Pranab Mukherjee, Sharad Pawar and few others, decided to scrap up that project. This is a dilemma that on one side our Bharat Ratna President Kalam was telling that this is an alternative source of biofuel. And then how did we come up with this type of recommendation to scrap up the Jatropha for cultivation, for biofuel? The detail is, when Jatropha data were collected and given, they were from a very few plants, and it was made to consider that it will work on a very large scale. And that was with respect to its yield and with respect to its disease resistance. Now, unless some plant gives certain amount of oil per hectare, it's not going to be viable. Jatropha was cultivated on a non-irrigated area. It gave only 1 ton per hectare yield, which is not sustainable for the biofuel production, because the cost of production was coming prohibitively high. Unless it can be increased to at least 5-fold to a 5 ton in unirrigated wasteland area, it cannot compete as a source for biofuel. Now, is this the only reason to scrap up? Yeah. Okay. Then we made little study on it. You see, if you would have seen wheat which was grown just 50 years ago, it was giving a very low yield. And when the Mexican wheat came, dwarf wheat came by Normal Barlog, in 1970 when it was introduced in India, it created a green revolution. And we had a bumper crop of wheat. The same should have been applied with Jatropha before we should have scrapped off. The Jatropha itself has sufficient potential for improvement. No breeding has been done at all with Jatropha, and people threw it off. See, this is the diagram. This is a table that shows how much variation in yield is there in Jatropha. You see, T1 is the treatment in which the yield is 4.62 ton per hectare. Against, there is one T4 which is 1.7 ton per hectare. This has been done on a very large scale field plantations by ICAR. And the last column that says F test means statistical significance was shown that in Jatropha there is sufficient variation already exists and we can undertake the breeding. If we can have a Jatropha of 4.63 ton material, we are able to make it a commercially viable proposition. But we took the result of T4 material of 1.7 ton and made a statement to scrap up the Jatropha from the national scenario. This is an example how a technology can be utilized. We utilize a micropropagation technique. In 1999, the banana fruit size was, as you can see, that small one, hardly 6 inch. We applied micropropagation technique, and by 2010, look at the fruit size. Not only this, the fruit quality, fruit yield has been increased tremendously by application of this technique, that the Gujarat has become an exporter of banana in the international market. The same technique of micropropagation can be applied in Jatropha, in which we select a plant with a high oil yield content, clone them up, and propagate only those plants for plantation purpose. This is exactly what we did in case of banana. We clone a very elite plant with such a nice fruit, which is shown in 2010, and a tremendous input was been realized in terms of output. Economic gain has been happening. There are some friends from Surat. They must witness this, that Surat, Navsari and Jhagadia, Bharuch, has become the exporter of banana at the international scale. That's because of application of this technique. Why can't we apply the same technique with Jatropha and make it viable? That is the one thing. Another approach is called a physiological approach, in which we change the physiological attitude of the plant and see whether it can produce more oil. In that direction, I will give you one example. All of you know that there are two types of flowers. Male flowers, which don't make seeds, and female flowers, which make the seed. In Jatropha, unfortunately, there are 98% of the flowers are male flowers. Only 2% are female flowers. Why do Jatropha want so many male flowers? We don't know, but nature has created it. We thought, can we convert some of the male flowers into female flowers? If we can, then there should be increase in yield. And look at those white open are called the male flowers. We don't have here the pointer, I believe, but this is the flowers of Jatropha, and those big one is called the fruit, and you can see very few fruits, and rest of the flowers are male flower, which are of no use. We develop a growth hormone and converted about 3% of the male flowers into female flowers. That raised into a 30% increase in yield of the seed. And we have already filed this patent. The cost-benefit ratio has come 1:3. That means you spend 1 rupee and you get output of 3 rupees. And now it can become a viable option for making a biofuel crop. This is one crop that our country can use it on a wasteland, provided we do a technological input. Another is a algae. Algae is a waterborne organism. In case of Jatropha, you have to utilize the land. But in case of algae, you don't have to utilize the land. You can use our huge sea coast that India has. 3,500 kilometer length of sea coast. There you can identify few algae. It's a waterborne plant. It grows in water. And those algae can be converted to make a biofuel. One of that algae, which is called a brown algae, is called Botrycoccus. It does not occupy the land. It abates the carbon dioxide much faster than a land plant. And the waste, after extracting the oil from the algae, becomes an excellent manure. As the yield on a hectare and annual basis is much higher than any of the field crop. So there is no point of going for Jatropha. If we can standardize a microalgae cultivations, we are heading a home. 3 years ago, I had attended a conference of a Grow Diesel in Delhi. A German scientist has developed a bioreactor to grow microalgae. That bioreactor is a glass reactor. Total length of that bioreactor was 22 miles. In such a huge reactor, algae can be grown. So you don't require even land. You grow in a nice glass reactor or plastic reactor and produce that biodiesel. The raw material it wants is only carbon dioxide which is being emitted from the industry, and some small amount of nitrate and phosphate. The cost is competitive to a crude oil, and I made some arithmetic calculation that if we want to use this as a source of biofuel, how much land India would have to replace? 1 million hectare of land will be required. That will totally offset our entire import bill of biodiesel, crude oil. It's a pilot project of, this is a given 100 gram per square meter per day. If you can achieve, then it becomes a nice sort of a what we call a decentralized plant, and a 10 hectare of pond may not be a problem to get in various villages, where it can become a self-sustainable biofuel production plant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant Bhatt. Now I request Mr. H.M. Kamath to make sit and discuss also.
Yeah, this is a panel discussion.
It's a panel discussion. You can sit here and do that. Yeah. You can sit here and also.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have been propagating small cogens right from the beginning. I think 15 years before we started with a small steam turbine project which was of the first kind in India, and as small as 100 kilowatt generation on steam turbine we did. After that it was in the chemical industry, organic acetic acid manufacturing plant, but then we could extend that concept to almost pharmaceutical, paper, textile, everything. And what we did was, in between the boiler and the process, we installed a turbine which could take advantage of the pressure drop and produce power virtually at free of cost. Similarly, on natural gas, we have installed, we started similar concept on 2002-2003 on natural gas, where we have installed one small 22 kilowatt into 2 engines on natural gas at Hazira. That project was directly conceived by Mukesh Ambani, and he came for even seeing the commissioning. We tapped entire exhaust heat of that for giving the air conditioning for his data center on that petrol pump, and balance hot water for his canteen. And so his idea was that you should use everything available from the exhaust heat and make it as efficient model as possible, and it should work continuously on the all the variations during the day and night. And basically he would like to implement that along the gas pipeline which is coming up. So we could go up to as small as 22 kilowatt cogen, and the power cost at the present cost of natural gas was around 1.1 rupees. Cost of power which was getting generated without loading the capital cost, of course. Subsequently, we did the same thing on the biogas. We adopted to scrubbing technology, and we could give a complete solution to distilleries and dairies and natural gas. We did quite a few projects on Tarai generation, where we could use the heat from the steam turbine and the exhaust heat going into the absorption chilling for giving the minus temperatures required for dairies and whatever. So currently we are also looking at biomass. we find it, of course, biomass gasification and power technology not so, we can really put it on the commercial use currently. So what we are doing is currently we are basically, idea was going after the biomass for power generation because we have been basically a power generation company. But currently we have gone into the thermal, that is steam generation from the biomass. But interesting thing which I want to, agree with Professor here, what he was talking, is in the one district, we have our own plants now. And we have been in Kolhapur district alone, we could find around 10 plants. Each could give around 150 tons of waste. Today, even we find that, we cannot take entire soybean waste from the fields because after the rainy season starts, nobody can go into the fields. So these are some of the facts on the, ground level, which could give us still a better potential, and we have to see what kind of technologies we can put there at the grassroots level in the villages and see to get it. But even then, today we could reach around 100 and 150 tons up, and perhaps around 15 locations are there. So you can imagine if the present level of technologies on biomass gasification, although there are some problems, so we cannot really put it on the use. But if each 1 kg can give you 1 megawatt, so 1 kilowatt of power, which means that 150 tons can give you around 150 megawatt of power per day. So if you have, let's say, 15 plants which in one district, which means that you can have a potential of 100 megawatt per hour generation. So it's really thought-provoking, and maybe that's the way forward we can take it. Similarly, we are doing a project in Nasik on sewage gas. We are installing a scrubber and engines and generating around 200 kilowatt from the sewage. After this project, there are around 5 plants similar nature in Nasik itself, and it can be extended to many places in all over. So that's our outlook towards distributed power, and we think it's we have been doing that and trying to promote it for last 15 years. We hope it will become a success and it can compete very well with the big power plants concepts. That's my.
Thank you, Mr. Kamath. Thank you very much. I would now request Mr. Varun Gulati.
Thank you.
Switch is on, please check.
Hello. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank the opportunity given to me on this panel, because I understand that the average experience here maybe is more than my age. But still, I just like to share some views, from the exchange point of view. I represent the Indian Energy Exchange. We are primarily, just to give an introduction, a short-term power solution to the Indian scenario. On an average, we trade around 40,000 megawatts of power today, and we definitely see a volume going forward. As rightly pointed out, it's around 2% of the power that we trade, but there are certain regulations which we are imposed to. But I would just like to point out a few areas where we think decentralized power can be of an interest from the exchange point of view, and how we can help the power generators over here. So as pointed out, grid availability is a major factor even from the exchange point of view. We see a lot of congestion in the grids, which restricts some of our trade from happening. So this definitely is solved, would be solved by the decentralized power generation. Second of a major interest is, since a lot of decent power will be generated through gas, I think this is a good solution, especially when it comes to peak hours of power generation, because gas can be ramped up easily. We believe excess of power which can be generated from decentralized power generation, this excess power can be traded on the exchange. Since you're not bound by any PPAs, the excess power generation at any hours is open to be traded on the exchange. And given that peak hours, it's a short-term opportunity market to gain good incentives on your investment. So this could be a major factor when we see the power coming on stream. Second is also what we see is if there's a lot of group captives, and since there might not be a lot of excess power, pooled together such captives or from decentralization power could act as a virtual power plant, feeding together into the grid, and hence again increasing the volume on the exchange, maybe making better returns for your investments. Even when your power demand goes down, when we install captive generations in the building, the AC requirement sometimes it goes down, you can still run your power plants at maximum capacity, and the excess power can be traded on the exchange again. So this sort of opportunity, I think it should be beneficial to the power generator, especially malls, buildings. DLF as a generator could look into it. And finally, I think we would just like to add is, we are, as you might be aware, there's an REC market which is being developed. So when we talk about biofuels based power, or when we talk about solar based power or small wind, all this again has an incentive which the government is now offering through an REC perspective, and again it is all tradable through the exchange. So we are more than happy for this sort of a power market to develop, because I think it opens up the competition in the entire market, and we would more than welcome such small power generators to come and trade on the exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Varun Gulati. Now I request Ms. Vikas Kuliani to.
Hi, everybody. I am Vikas Kolyani from CRISIL Advisory. First of all, I thank for this opportunity given to us to speak at this forum. I'll come straight to the topic. We are short of time, and the topic is very specific: decentralized power. Can we make it? As I read it. Why we sit here as CRISIL Advisory is because before this forum, we, along with CFSR, which is a Center of Fuel and Research headed by Mr. Kapadia, we made a joint representation on behalf of various city gas companies to Planning Commission as well, which was specifically on this topic, as we call it DPG, Distributed Power Generation. We tried to highlight various benefits that DPG comes up with and which can actually augment the entire power deficit, the power scenario or the centralized power plants. We have made this representation to the Planning Commission. We have given certain key points where we think policy related issues can be taken care of in order to further uplift or further enforce this particular thought. Now, when we talk about decentralized generation, we are essentially saying when we talk about the fuels which go into decentralized generation, globally you will see that primarily the fuels feeding into decentralized generation are natural gas, then biofuels, and probably CBM. While biofuels may play a very important role in future, when we talk about our topic, which is the next 12th plan, we are primarily focusing natural gas. But what's happening with natural gas? We had a huge a lot of gas came into the market, 70, 60, 70 MMS CMD, projected to go up to 90 MMS CMD. But what happened with that gas? We have a gas utilization policy. Entire gas got sucked up into the plants which were stranded. Well, it's a good thing that we have gas-based plants which were stranded and they are now running on fuels like natural gas and not naphtha or FO. But at the same time, the message that has been sent out into the market, what we understand is that if there's a gas-based plant existing and if there's gas, you will get it. So people, if I would say the risk-taking appetite of people have increased, because they know if I come up with a gas-based plant tomorrow, I'll probably get gas if it comes out from, say, KG Basin or Kaveri or Mahanadi, or there's a strong likelihood because I'm an existing plant. Now, we cannot just go on like this. What we need to realize is that gas is a scarce resource, especially for India, which is coal abundant. When we're talking about natural gas, we also need to appreciate this fact that a lot of investment goes into wild exploration and production of natural gas. Hence, it is prudent and at the same time very important for us to ensure that gas feeds into the areas which can best utilize it. I mean, when we look at this, we either see process requirement or power requirement. When we talk about power requirement, we talk about centralized power or decentralized power. When we talk about decentralized power, it wins hands down over centralized power. But till date, under GUP, which is gas utilization policy, we haven't found CHP as a priority area, which I think is the need of the hour, wherein we include CHP as a priority area in GUP, which was one of our requests to the Planning Commission as well. Not only because it is more efficient, it takes less gestation period, the gestation period is small, it does not depend on the other constraints of infrastructure like transmission or distribution, and several benefits which I won't go into because several people sitting here have already dwell upon it, efficiency and cooling and chilling together and all sorts of things. When we talk about benefits or policy level things, like what is it actually required to make this thing happen? I mean, when we talk about 50 gigawatt, which means 50,000 megawatt, which is close to 250 MMSCMD of natural gas, that too in next planning year, which is just we are at the brink of it. So one is definitely optimum utilization of the scarce resource which we have. We just cannot afford to let go of natural gas into areas where it is not being utilized efficiently. And the second is on the equipment side. When we talk about equipment, we still see a lot of scope in improvement of policy. Our IEP, Integrated Energy Policy, does talk about reliable and efficient energy, verbatim as I quote. But if we are to really create